Okay, good evening, and thank you all for once again joining us to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Ajaan Geoff's arrival to stay at Mettā Forest Monastery in Valley Center, California, on May 28, 1991. This is our third day of meditation. To honor Than Ajaan's dedicated hard work and teaching over the decades, a group of his students has decided to come together for 7 days puja, or homage through practicing the Dhamma, each day at 8 o'clock Pacific time for May 28th through June 3rd, 2021. Again, each Zoom meeting can accommodate up to 100 participants. And if we ever exceed capacity on Zoom, this session is also being simultaneously broadcast to YouTube and to the Facebook group for the Friends of Mettā Forest Monastery. I believe there was a question from Evan about a list, and so the Facebook group it's called Friends of Mettā Forest Monastery would probably be the best place to start because they have a lot of announcements about all kinds of talks and study groups and discussion and sharing of Dhamma talks. So it would be a great place to look for. I would just search in Facebook for Friends of Mettā Forest Monastery, and you should be able to find it. And so each session, each day, is going to begin with a chant from the chanting guide of the Dhamma order. And tonight we'll be chanting the Buddha Jaya Mangala Gatha Sutta, the verses of the Buddha's victory blessings, along with the recording of the Sangha of Mettā Forest Monastery chanting this passage as well. We'll begin meditation as we listen to a pre-recorded Dhamma talk, each of which has been selected by one of his many students from the Facebook group for Friends of Mettā Forest Monastery, or from one of his Dhamma study groups. And at the end of each meditation session, we will have an opportunity to dedicate goodwill and the merit of our practice to Ajaan Geoff and to anyone else to whom you feel so inclined, such as the other members of the Sangha, the Thai Forest Ajaans, or to all beings. And during each Zoom session, you can keep your videos on or off, but we ask that you please keep your microphones muted during the chanting and meditation. If you have any questions, or if you need anything at any point, you can just type a request into the Zoom chat, or into the YouTube chat, or into the Facebook comment section, and we will work on assisting you as quickly and as quietly as possible. In addition, if anyone would like to write any messages of goodwill or empathetic joy to Than Ajaan on this momentous occasion, then we will be saving the Zoom and the YouTube chats and the Facebook comments at the end of each meeting, and we will pass on the well wishes to him afterwards. So now let's begin by bowing 3 times to pay homage to our teacher, the Buddha. And now let's bow 3 times to pay homage to our teacher, Ajaan Geoff. And now let's begin with chanting. We will be chanting Buddha Jaya Mangala Gatha, the verses of the Buddha's victory blessings, along with the recording of the Sangha of Wat Mettā.
Ahum sahasamabhimimrita saudhantan Preme kalamudita kora sasena maran Anadi dhamma vidhina chitoa mulindo Tande jasa bhavatu te jaya mangalangan Marati rekamapi yujita sambharatim Koram panala vakamakamana yakam Kante sudanda vidhina chitawa mulindo Tande jasa bhavatu te jaya mangalangan Lala giri gajawara gatimata bhutan Dawa gija kamasandi vasudarunantan Mettā museka vidhina chitawa mulindo Tande jasa bhavatu te jaya mangalangan Uketa kangamati hata sudarunantan Avantiyo Janavatan Ulimavavantam Iti Pisantatamano Chittawa Munindo Tande Jasa Bhavatu Te Jayamangalangan Atvaranga Tamudara Nivaga Piniya Chinchaya Durtavachanam Janakaya Manche Sante Naso Mavitina Chittawa Munindo Tande Jasa Bhavatu Te Jayamangalangan Satchang Vihaya Mati Satchagavara Getu Vara Bhiro Pitamanan Atiyanta Bhutan Panya Hari Bachalita Chitova Manindo Tande Jasa Bhavatu Te Jayamangalangan Nando Bananda Pujagang Viputan Mahihim Buddhena Tera Pujagena Nama Bayanto Yeho Pade Savitina Chitawa Manindo Tande Jasa Bhavatu Te Jayamangalangan Dunga Adilti Pujagena Sudatahatan Mama Visuddhi Jyotimeti Bhagavati Paran Yana Gadena Vitina Chitawa Manindo Tande Jasa Bhavatu Te Jayamangalangan Mettā Vibhuta Jayamangala Tagatha Yovachano Dinadine Sarate Matandi Itvarane Kavividhani Chubadavani Mokan Sukhan Adigame Naro Sapanyo Ahum Sahasramati Mettā Sarvanta Craving.
And now we will begin the meditation with a Dhamma talk by Ajaan Geoff from September 9th, 2020. This talk is entitled Antidotes to Craving.
Work on that. Every evening at sunset, Buddha has you remind yourself. This could be your last sunset. You might go tonight. Are you ready to go? Then you look into your mind. If you see that there's anything in there that would pull you back, make it difficult to go well, work on that. So look into your mind. What do you have here? There's another place where the Buddha said that when you go from this body to another body, you cling to craving. You often hear about clinging to the 5 aggregates. But here says you're clinging to craving. The craving that led to the clinging to begin with, you turn around and hold on to that. That's what pulls you along. So the kind of cravings you might have at that point. And 3 big ones stand out, the ones that the Buddha said are the cause for suffering. Craving for sensuality, craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming. Craving for sensuality usually comes from our attachment to our sensual pleasures and our fascination of thinking about sensual pleasures. At that moment, of course, you'll be pulled back to pleasures of the past. There can be a lot of nostalgia. You miss this, you miss that. person, that situation. It's painful. As the Buddha said, you've got to see the drawbacks of sensuality. You could come back and have those pleasures again. Or many times, the particulars of the pleasures that you really enjoyed are gone forever. I notice every time I go back to Thailand, how much things have changed. And you can think, where's the Thailand I used to know? Yesterday, someone sent me the transcription of the talk I gave about the old woman who died a few weeks ago at the age of 100. Started thinking about the way we lived back in those days when I first met them. How simple life in the countryside was. And although there were hardships, still there's a lot to get nostalgic about. And if you let yourself get nostalgic, it's painful. As the Buddha said, you have to develop lack of nostalgia, analio, for your cravings. And so if you see anything come up that you wish you would have this back again or that back again, or start going for sensuality that might be better. Say things I wish I had got this time. You gotta let it go. Remind yourself all the work that goes into that. And Ajaan Geoff had a good contemplation for that. He says the sensual pleasures that you really long for are ones you've had before. You long for them because you miss them. Think about that. You miss them, so you try to get them again. And then, of course, you're going to lose them again. You're going to miss them again. He says, if you think about this, it's enough to make you want to let go. So learn to think about it in that way. All the particulars you go for, you're going to have to lose them again and again and again. And you have to ask yourself, when will you have had enough? It's pleasures of this sort never really give satisfaction. There's always something lacking. There's a spot in the north rim of the Grand Canyon, a meadow that I really like. Jarrows there at the north rim. So I took a hike, got to the meadow, and I'd given myself a certain amount of time. I was going to turn around and go back. I got there and I realized I had only 10 minutes for the meadow. My first thought as I sat down was, I hope I can come here again. I hadn't even been there for a minute already. I was thinking about the next time. That's what you're going to watch out for. The thoughts that I'd like to have that again. Again, as I said, there are pleasures that you missed. So the next time around, I'd like to come back to that pleasure. Beauty, wealth, power, anything that has to do with the senses. Your nostalgia for it, or your disappointment that you didn't get it this time and you'd like to try it again. That's going to pull you back. That's going to pull you down. So see the drawbacks of sensuality. Think of all the work that has to go into it. Then it's going to just slip through your fingers. And all too often, in gaining sensual pleasures, we end up doing unskillful things, either to get them or to keep them. And they still go through our fingers. We're left with nothing but the karma. That's one form of craving you've got to watch out for. You find yourself clinging to it, you've got to learn how to pry loose the fingers of the mind.
Sorry, everyone. We're having some technical difficulties with the audio. I'm going to try streaming the Dhamma talk from a different source to see if we can hear it clear. Just let me know if it's still unclear when we stream it this way, okay? Thank you.
Every evening at sunset, the Buddha has you remind yourself, this could be your last sunset. You might go tonight. Are you ready to go? And then you look into your mind. If you see that there's anything in there that would pull you back, make it difficult to go, well, work on that. So look into your mind. What do you have here? There's another place where the Buddha said that when you go from this body to another body, you cling to craving. You often hear about clinging to the 5 aggregates. Later he says you're clinging to craving. The craving that led to the clinging to begin with, you turn around and hold on to that. That's what pulls you along. Just the kind of cravings you might have at that point. And 3 big ones stand out, the ones that the Buddha said are the cause for suffering. Craving for sensuality, craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming. Craving for sensuality usually comes from our attachment to our sensual pleasures and our fascination with thinking about sensual pleasures. At that moment, of course, you'll be pulled back to pleasures of the past. There can be a lot of nostalgia. You miss this, you miss that. This person, that situation. It's painful. As the Buddha said, you've got to see the drawbacks of sensuality. You could come back and have those pleasures again. The pleasures that you really enjoyed are gone forever. I notice every time I go back to Thailand how much things have changed, and I keep thinking, where is the Thailand I used to know? Yesterday, someone sent me the transcription of the talk I gave about the old woman who died a few weeks ago at the age of 100. I started thinking about the way we lived back in those days when I first met them, how simple life in the countryside was. And although there were hardships, well, there's a lot to get nostalgic about. And if you let yourself get nostalgic, it's painful. As the Buddha said, you have to develop a lack of nostalgia, analio, for your cravings. And so if you see anything come up that you wish you could have this back again or that back again, or you start going for sensuality that might be better. See, the things I wish I had, never had got this time. You gotta let it go. Remind yourself all the work that goes into that. And Ajaan Geoff had a good contemplation for that. He says the sensual pleasures that you really long for are ones you've had before. You long for them because you miss them. Think about that. You miss them, so you try to get them again, and then of course you're going to lose them again, and you're going to miss them again. He says, if you think about this, it's enough to make you want to let go. So learn to think about it in that way. All the particulars you go for, you're going to have to lose them again and again and again. And you have to ask yourself, when will you have had enough? Because pleasures of this sort never really give satisfaction. There's always something lacking. There's a spot in the north rim of the Grand Canyon, a meadow that I really like. Last year I was there at the north rim, so I took a hike, got to the meadow, and I'd given myself a certain amount of time. I was going to have to turn around and go back. And I got there and I realized I had only 10 minutes for the meadow. And my first thought as I sat down was, I hope I can come here again. I hadn't even been there for a minute already. I was thinking about the next time. That's what you got to watch out for. The thought says, I'd like to have that again. Or again, as I said, there are pleasures that you missed. You say, next time around, I'd like to come back for that pleasure. Beauty, wealth, power, anything that has to do with the senses. Your nostalgia for it, or your disappointment that you didn't get it this time and you'd like to try it again. That's going to pull you back. It's going to pull you down. Just see the drawbacks of sensuality. Think of all the work that has to go into it. Then it's going to just slip through your fingers. And all too often, in gaining sensual pleasures, we end up doing unskillful things, either to get them or to keep them. And they still go through our fingers. And we're left with nothing but the karma. That's one form of craving you've got to watch out for. If you find yourself clinging to it, you've got to learn how to pry loose the fingers of the mind. They keep wanting to fall back there. Then there's craving for becoming. You think about the different things you didn't get to do or be in this lifetime. You'd say, I'd like to take on that identity. This was a topic of discussion I had many times with some of the farmers back in Thailand. I try to get them to meditate. They said, we're not too great a hurry to meditate right now. We want to make merit, be generous, so we can come back wealthy next time. And one of the advantages of being a monk is you meet members of all levels of society. And you meet from the poor people, but they suffer. People with power suffer. I knew a monk in Thailand who had psychic powers for a while. And he was not very circumspect in how he showed them off. And he attracted some very high-ranking government officials. And they would come to him and they'd complain about one another, basically. Their enemies or their opponents and trying to govern the country. And he told me one time, he said, it's like talking to 4-year-olds, talking to these people. The resentments, the feuds, the desires for revenge. So poor people suffer the way poor people suffer. Rich people suffer the way rich people suffer. Devas have their suffering. Everywhere you can go, there's going to be suffering. That we have on the five recollections. It's only part of the sutta. The other part of the sutta says, it's not just me. All beings everywhere. Subject to aging, subject to illness, subject to death, subject to separation, and they live by their karma. When you reflect on those 4 recollections only with reference to yourself, the Buddha says this makes you heedful. When you reflect on the fact that wherever you could go in the universe, whatever state of becoming you could take on, is subject to these 5 principles. He said that, he says, gives rise to the sangwega that gives rise to the path. So remember, whatever identity you could take on would have some pretty nasty details in the fine print. So if you can think of it that way, it's easier to let go of the desire to come back and do anything at all in any world. Then there's craving for non-becoming. And a good way to look for this is to look at times when you think back on things you did and you regret, or things you didn't do and you regret. The stupid things you said, the stupid things you did. And you realize that that particular identity is one that makes you very uncomfortable. You don't like the idea that that's you. And you'd like to destroy that memory, destroy that identity. so you take on a new identity. As the Buddha said, one of his great insights was seeing that in the desire for non-becoming, there was becoming. So if you find the mind slipping in any of these things, nostalgia for sensual pleasures, or the desire for new sensual pleasures you didn't have, the desire to take on any state of being on any level of the universe, or the desire to destroy some aspect of you in terms of things you did and said. You look back on it, you said, I wish I could just get rid of that memory. All these things, you've got to see them as things that are going to weigh you down. So take the proper antidotes for sensuality. It has to do with lust. You start with the contemplation of the body. And then you look at the drawbacks of sensuality in general. For becoming, you remember, everything is subject to aging, illness, and death. Every identity. And the desire to destroy that particular memory of something you did unskillfully, that's going to give rise to more becoming, which goes back to aging, illness, and death all over again. So these are the things you have to watch out for. And these are the antidotes you use. They have to use them again and again and again for them really to sink in. As with any directed thought and evaluation, you do it once, and it's not going to go very deep into the mind because you're talking to yourself, and maybe you have a voice that you're not used to hearing, or an attitude or a perspective you're not used to seeing things from. So you have to work on it again and again and again until these thoughts come more easily, more quickly. Because at the moment of death, you're going to need them to come fast. Because your cravings are fast. They see they can't stay here, and they're going to immediately look for something else. And so you've got to make sure they don't pull you in the wrong direction. So work on these antidotes and take a good dose of these antidotes every day. Contemplation of the drawbacks of sensuality. Contemplation of the undesirability of any state of being, any state of becoming. And the realization that regret about how much you want to destroy that memory, destroy that sense of who you were. That'll take you back to states of becoming all over again. So keep these antidotes in your medicine chest. And take a good dose every day.
At the end of the meditation, we encourage everyone to dedicate goodwill and the merit of our practice to our teacher, Ajaan Geoff, and to anyone else to whom you feel so inclined, such as the rest of the Sangha, the Mettā Forest Ajaans, or to all beings. And now you can open your eyes. And as we come to a close, let's once again bow 3 times to pay homage to our teacher, the Buddha. And now let's bow 3 times to pay homage to our teacher, Ajaan Geoff. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock Pacific time. May all beings be happy.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Evan, did you get my message? I think Evan left.